Multigroove Racing has produced some of the most exciting finishes in NASCAR history, from the infamous slide job race in 2018 between Kyle Larson and Kyle Busch, to Carl Edwards narrowly beating Jimmy Johnson in 2005 at Atlanta to get his very first Cup Series win utilizing the outside line. Giving drivers the option of different lines is one of the best things a racetrack can do. Unfortunately, some of the most legendary NASCAR games don't have this as an option, or at least not a viable one. NASCAR Thunder 2003, Thunder 04, and NASCAR 2005 Chase for the Cup, all very beloved games. None of them really have it where the outside line or even the middle part of the racetrack is a viable option for going fast and winning races. Or is it? Today, we're going to answer the question, can you win a race in NASCAR Thunder 2003 by running the outside line? So first things first, how exactly are we going to test this theory? Naturally, there are tracks that are going to be more suited to running the outside line. I mean, I'm not going to try this at Martinsville, for God's sakes. So, best option, you would think, Daytona or Talladega. You'd be wrong. Running the outside line at plate tracks in NT03, 04, and 05 aren't exactly the best thing you can do. You actually seemingly go slower, at least in my experience, when you try to run the outside, even if you have a drafting partner in front of you. So, the second best option will be California or Michigan. And in this case, I'm going with Michigan because I like Michigan better. Now, naturally, the basic default setup probably wouldn't be best suited for this, so I went ahead and made myself a setup that optimizes top speed. My idea here is to have the most top speed going into the corners, coast into the corners, and then get back on the throttle. Also, I tried to make the setup a little bit loose to kind of make it easier to run up higher on the track where the game really doesn't seem to like you running. More often than not, if you slide up off the inside line, you're going to get past. But the whole thing here is for us to try and coast into the corner and find the grip and just power off the corner past the AI. Now, I'm pretty sure on easier difficulties, this won't be that difficult because the AI is quite slow on rookie, and that was exactly the case. I decided to go with a simple 6-lap race at Michigan. Instead of starting in last place, I'll be starting in 23rd place because that's where the game places you by default. In the very first attempt, it was very obvious that the AI on rookie difficulty were quite slow. Now, nonetheless, they did get a good start because the AI in these games seemingly always get a good start. But off of turn 2, I managed to get a very big run off the corner, which kind of surprised me. I didn't really expect that. But then the run into turn 3 was even more ridiculous. I don't know if it was, I think mostly in part due to the fact that the AI is bunched up, they kind of slow down, and then I almost wrecked Johnny Benson off of turn 4, because he's going so slow. On lap 2 off of turn 2, I also doored Matt Kenseth, and I was already making my way up through the field with relative ease. The even more ridiculous thing was when I dove into turn 3, slammed into the wall, and still had more than enough momentum to go for a 4 wide on Todd Bodine, Shauna Robinson, and Kevin Harvick, and pass all 3 of them with no problem. Moving my way up into the top 10 with no issue whatsoever. But unfortunately, as we were coming into turn 3 on lap 3, I ended up going back to my old ways and ended up driving near the bottom of the track. So I pretty much decided, that kind of ruins the challenge, and restarted. My next attempt, the first lap, was pretty much most of the same. The AI drove away a little bit, but I was able to catch right back up. But it was even more ridiculous when I dove into turn 3 this time and went from 23rd all the way up into the top 10. Partially, it seemed because the AI kind of slowed down with each other, but the fact that I passed over 10 cars around the outside was pretty ridiculous. Needless to say. By the end of lap 1, I was already up into 7th place, and by the end of lap 2, I was into the lead. That wasn't the end of the show, though. With 2 laps to go, Mark Martin managed to get right back up behind me, or he would have been behind me if I was running the actual proper racing line for this game. So I ended up racing Mark Martin side by side for the final 2 laps and just barely bested him on my way to winning this race by only using the outside line. Now, Obviously, that's not that big of a feat, considering we're on Rookie, and you see how slow the AI is. So I decided I wanted to up the ante a little bit and move on to Veteran difficulty. Veteran difficulty started off great, with Michael Waltrip almost turning me into the outside wall. And it was very obvious early on that the AI was in fact faster. I was dropping back more spots. I was dropping back spots, period, which is something I didn't really do in the Rookie attempt. But nonetheless, I was still getting pretty good runs off the corner of turn 1 on the first lap, managing to hang with the 7 car right in front of me of Casey Atwood. Diving down to turn 3, I did actually have a pretty good run, but it was not nearly as ridiculous as it was on Rookie. So at the end of lap 1, instead of going from 23rd to about 8th, I went from 23rd to 23rd. It was very obvious that the difficulty had gone up, but it was still very viable. I was still able to get to the outside of cars very easily, not really getting blocked except on the straightaways, which allowed me to get some pretty good runs going into the corners. The only problem was on the exit of corners, the AI seemingly had a bit more speed until they moved back up the track and let me get draft off of them. It also didn't help that the loose setup was causing me to door the AI on occasion and causing me to lose speed. So at the end of lap 2 on Veteran, I was still in 20th. Coming to 2 laps to go, I'd made my way up to 13th place, still using the outside line, still just kind of trying to figure out how the best way to do this is. There's a lot of throttle control and just a lot of trying to make sure you don't wiggle your car around and lose speed. You want as much momentum off the exit of the corner as you can get. And again, it really helps when the AI are moving up in front of you and you can get that draft off of them. Keep in mind, this is quick race. This is not career mode, so your car is much better than it would be if you tried this in career mode, which I don't know why you would. That'd be kind of insane. But coming to the white flag on this attempt on Veteran, I was in P9. So I ultimately figured that this was a very viable thing. I was able to pass the AI with ease, but they were much more racy. Coming to the checkered flag on the attempt, I was actually 3 wide on the high side with Bill Elliott and Terry Labonte, ending the race in P9, which made me think, hey, this is really viable even on Veteran difficulty. So I decided to take another crack at it. The next attempt started much like the first. I was about 26 going down the back straightaway before I dove down into turn number 3, which was the place that I made at the most spots in both of the previous attempts. But this time it didn't really go that well, and I ended up finishing lap 1 in about 24th. But that didn't deter me, as I was still making up solid ground on the high side despite the AI being faster, finishing up lap number 2 in P18. On lap number 4, I was up to 13th place, and on the exit of turn 2, I actually got a massive run on the AI with the help of a little bit of draft off of Kurt Busch's car, who was a good ways in front of me. I was surprised I actually got draft off of him. But I just had this massive run off the corner, getting past Sterling Marlin, up into the top 10, and the leader wasn't even that far away. Coming to the white flag, I was up to P6, but I was about 2 seconds down of the leader. Now, this made me think, well, this is definitely viable with the right setup like I seemingly have. Maybe I could have a better setup. It's definitely viable on Veteran difficulty if you ran a longer race. I don't see any reason why you couldn't chase down a leader in a race like this. I mean, if you have pit stops and you have tire wear, which I don't have any tire wear on because the races are so short, things might go pear-shaped. I ended up getting into a wall on the final lap. Not that it mattered, but I did improve my finish up to P7 as I slammed the wall off turn 4 and Bill Elliott got by me because, again, the looseness of the car was a bit of a handful. So on to the final main event. Obviously, I had to try it on Legend. Through turn 1 and 2 on Legend difficulty, I was down to 27th. So already, once again, the increase in difficulty was showing its face. Just by a few spots, though. Still, diving down into turn number 3, I was able to make up a little bit of ground. Not really make up spots, but it was definitely showing me that the car was still fast enough to make passes. I was able to get back around Ward Burton and slide into P26. The straightaways are very important, trying to get that draft, trying to get as fast as I could get, diving down into the corner, lifting off, and just coasting through the corner and getting back on the throttle in the right time. And on lap 2, I actually made up quite a few spots through turns 1 and 2, all the way up into 19th. It was actually really surprising because the AI really friggin' fast on Legend difficulty, and just the idea that I was making up all these spots against Legend AI, granted it's on Quick Race, sure, yeah, it's not career mode, but I was getting massive runs off of turn 4, especially all the way up in the P15th start of lap 3, passing John Andretti on the inside, probably the only person in this entire race that I passed on the inside. And I mean, it was just insane. And then Michael Waltrip blew his engine to my inside, which for the first time in my life, I was very happy that I was on the outside line and not on the inside line, because I didn't want any part of him slowing me up. Thankfully, he didn't. And coming to the end of lap 3, I whipped around the outside, slammed into the wall a little bit. It did slow me down, but it didn't slow me down as much as I thought it would, honestly. I was still able to keep the momentum, stay side by side with the 49, and eventually pass her and get up next to Steve Park, get past him into turn 1, into P10, and right now, I thought, well, hey, this is definitely viable now. I'm up in the P10, I've got 3 laps left, and they're the leaders. Got into Dale Jarrett a little bit, and that kind of hurt my momentum. The big thing here, like I've said, getting momentum off the corners, using the draft, it's just you have to keep your momentum. You can't let yourself get slowed up. Then I kind of blew turn 3, slid all the way up the track in a way that I didn't want to. I mean, I've been sliding up the track the entire video, obviously running the high line, but in that way, it really slowed me up and it kind of cost me. But nonetheless, I was able to hold on to P10, and I could easily see myself getting up into P4. On the final lap of this race on Legend, I started it in 9th place, still with a handful of spots in front of me, but I wasn't going to win. But again, very viable. With pit stops and tire degradation, maybe not. I did end up slamming into the wall and losing a few spots. I actually ended up in P12 for this race on Legend, which was pretty damn good when you consider it's on Legend. But again, this is kind of in a very controlled environment where there's no tire wear and, you know, starting in the mid-pack. I can't say for certain what would occur if the tires were wearing out. I probably wouldn't be able to run the high line like I was. But for all intents and purposes, at least at Michigan, with the right setup, you can definitely win races running the outside line. Rookie, obviously, it's rookie. It's very easy. But I think you could easily win a race on veteran difficulty. I think 6-lap races you could win on veteran difficulty with the right setup. Now, granted, I'm not so sure how it will work out at tracks like Vegas or Kansas, but I think this would be viable, definitely, to try at tracks like Atlanta. Texas, I think, would be a very good one to try, and of course California. But I mean, that might be something I try later. But for now, I just wanted to try it at a track that I just really knew had the potential for this. So that's all for this one. I just wanted to do something a little bit different, and this is an idea that popped into my head that I wanted to try. So let me know what you guys think. If you have any other ideas for any kind of videos like this, let me know, and I'll try. So anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. Peace.